I didn't inherit the apartment the way you inherit a watch, it arrived like a bruise. The lawyer slid an envelope across a lemon-oiled table, the seal leaving soot on my palm. Unit 6B, he said, almost apologizing. The key inside was older than the building should allow, heavy, with my name on a tag in my uncle's trembling script. A thin police file was clipped to the deed. It used the word, unfounded. Tenants had vanished one by one, leaving dinner cooling on plates and TVs still warm. 30 seconds. That's the hook, an address I'd never seen, a relative who stopped answering calls the night sirens braided into rain, a room where people evaporated like breath on glass. I told myself it was folklore with receipts. I touched the key and felt a tacky residue, as if the metal remembered a hand that wasn't mine. If you want true accounts that cut late but deep, subscribe now. I didn't choose a haunting. It folded my name into a key ring and waited by an elevator. The building leaned into the street as if trying to overhear. Inside, a chandelier wore dust like fur and the elevator paused between floors. A nurse in scrubs stepped from the stairwell, saw the key, and asked, visiting? I told her, owner. Her smile failed. 6B keeps furniture, she said. She didn't add what everyone knew, people didn't keep themselves. On 6, light had weight. It pooled in the carpet's low spots, shadows drifted as though the ceiling breathed. A burnt sugar smell threaded the hall. The brass 6B gleamed like it was polished from inside. The surrounding wood was scuffed, as if a life had pushed outward and never gotten through. The lock turned too easily. The air tasted like rainwater kept in copper, clean and old at once. A radio chased a station, dead air and choir, then static. Through the window the city doubled, as if the glass remembered a different skyline. On the couch a shallow dent looked recent. The bathroom mirror wore a gray film you could wipe but not remove. A ledger sat on the counter. Names, dates, deposits. After each tenant my uncle had drawn a neat underline. Some lines were ordinary. Some were retraced until the pen cut the page and left small, angry windows. Next to the last entry, Maya H. He'd added a tight loop, more knot than letter. A floorboard near the bedroom scraped. Not a creak, a scrape, as though a fingernail hooked under wood. I told myself rat, pipe, settling. My fingers touched the key in my pocket. They came away sticky again. The bedroom door stood open the width of a breath. The burnt sugar note thickened into heat. I touched the jamb. It was warm. The lamp blinked once and steadied. In that half-second of dark, the mattress formed a seated shape where there was nothing. When the bulb returned, the dent remained, as if weight had decided to stay. From the other room the radio slid through stations and landed on a voice I knew too well, my uncle, saying my name with a relief that hurt. I took one step closer. The room exhaled, slow and sweet and scorching against the back of my neck. The radio whispered, "Don't turn around," just as something pressed a second, colder key into my open palm. The new key, the one that had appeared in my palm though I hadn't moved, was darker than the first. Its teeth were jagged, hand-filed. I didn't want to test it, but not testing it felt worse, like holding onto a loaded gun with no safety. My uncle's voice had told me not to turn around, but silence stretched long enough for me to do exactly that. No one stood there. Only the corridor, the carpet sagging, the walls stained as if something wet had seeped upward instead of down. The sticky residue still clung to my fingertips, and in the dim reflection of the window I saw a faint outline of someone behind me, though the room was empty. I tried to steady my breath, but the air moved strangely, as if it were inhaling me. The radio clicked off on its own, leaving the quiet to hum. I sat on the edge of the bed where the unseen weight had been, pressing down on the mattress to prove it was only imagination. The fabric was warm, undeniably. My uncle had vanished in this place, but now it seemed he had never left. That ledger on the counter called me back. I brought it into the bedroom and read every name. Couples, students, retirees. People who should have left forwarding addresses or at least a trail. But each one ended abruptly with the same symbol, a looping knot. Tenants vanishing wasn't just rumor, it was a tally. The darker key seemed to pulse in my palm. Something inside me whispered that I should try it in the closet door. I didn't want to, but standing idle in the thickening air was worse. The closet door resisted, swollen in its frame, until the key slid in and turned with a damp click. The door opened on a space that wasn't just a closet. It stretched back far too deep for the floor plan, like a throat dug into the building. Stale heat rushed out, carrying a sweetness that made my stomach twist. Inside, scratches climbed the walls. Not animal marks, fingernails. Vertical, diagonal, desperate. At the very back, where the light failed, something shone faintly. A button. A latch. I reached with the ledger tucked under my arm like a shield. When my fingers brushed the wall, the scratches grew damp, fresh. I yanked my hand back and found black streaks on my skin, like ink, or blood that refused to dry. The ledger slipped from my grip. When it hit the closet floor, it didn't land on wood but on something softer. The sound was wrong. Hollow. I crouched and brushed my hand across the boards, and the panel beneath shifted. A hidden trapdoor. I forced myself to lift it. The hinges screamed. The dark below wasn't a basement, it was void. A draft crawled upward, whispering through my teeth as if it wanted inside me. Then the ledger slid by itself, pages flipping, stopping on Maya H.'s entry. A date had appeared that hadn't been there before. Tomorrow's date. My breath stuttered. The radio snapped back on from the other room, but it wasn't music, it was Maya's voice, crying faintly as though broadcast from under the floor. I reached toward the void, every instinct screaming not to. The black streaks on my skin began to smoke, curling into letters I couldn't read. From below the trapdoor, a hand that matched mine exactly reached up and gripped my wrist. The hand that clamped my wrist was ice, but it wasn't cold like weather. It was the kind of cold that seemed to know your name, the kind that felt chosen for you. I pulled back, but the fingers tightened with a mirrored strength. My own veins glowed faintly where its grip held me, like my blood was remembering someone else's pulse. Then I heard it. The voice from under the floor wasn't just Maya, it was dozens, layered, ragged, whispering at once. Some pleaded, some prayed, and some just repeated their own names like talismans against forgetting. The sound made my teeth ache. I wrenched backward, slamming the trapdoor shut on that clutching hand. The slam echoed like a gunshot, and for a moment, silence returned, except for my own thudding heart. I leaned against the door, holding it shut even though the hand had withdrawn. The radio in the other room flickered again, static rolling through stations, and then my uncle's voice returned. Not recorded, not memory, his tone had weight, like he was breathing directly into the microphone. "You opened it," he said. "God help you." I stumbled back from the closet, the darker key still clenched in my fist. My instinct screamed to run, but the apartment door was already closed and I couldn't remember locking it. My phone had no signal. Outside, the hallway was too quiet. I wasn't sure escape was possible. So I did the worst possible thing. I opened the trapdoor again. This time, no hand reached up. Instead, the blackness seemed deeper, a gravity more than a shadow. I lowered the flashlight from my phone. The beam should have struck concrete after a few feet, but it just kept going. And then, movement. Not one shape, but many. Dozens of faces stared up, pale as paper, their mouths open in soundless screams. The ledger beside me fluttered and slammed shut. A new page had appeared inside, pressed into the leather itself, not written but burned. My name. My move-in date. A blank underline waiting to be filled. I slammed the trapdoor again and staggered back. The sweetness in the air grew heavier, thicker, almost syrupy. My stomach rolled. The bedroom light flickered. For 1 second, every surface of the room was covered in black handprints, walls, ceiling, mirror, even my skin. When the bulb steadied, they were gone. But the residue remained on my arms, faint and wet. I backed into the living room. The radio stopped on a lullaby this time, an old one my mother used to hum when storms rattled the windows. My mother had been dead for years. I covered my ears, but the tune seeped through bone. Then, 3 knocks on the apartment door. Slow, deliberate, patient. I froze. Another 3 knocks followed, louder, shaking the frame. I crept to the peephole. No one was there. But when I stepped back, the knocks came again, this time from inside the apartment, on the closet door I had just sealed. The closet knob twisted, and the darker key in my fist turned hot enough to blister my skin. The darker key seared my palm until I dropped it. It hit the carpet with a sound too sharp, like glass shattering, though when I looked it was still whole. The closet knob rattled as though someone on the other side was impatient, someone who thought they had every right to be here. I backed away. The air smelled scorched, like wires sparking in the walls, though the light bulbs above stayed dim and steady. The ledger lay where I'd left it, but the cover now bore more than ash smudges. It had a title, burned clean through the leather, Tenant Record. Below that, etched deeper, it said, No vacancies. I flipped it open despite my trembling hands. Every tenant's name was underlined except one, mine. And beside that blank space, an address was etched in tiny, surgical letters, 6B. I slammed the book shut. My uncle's voice burst through the radio again, this time frantic. Don't answer them, he warned. They'll offer terms. They'll always offer terms. The knocking shifted. No longer the closet door. It was everywhere, walls, floor, even the ceiling, as though the whole apartment was hollow and filled with restless fists. I ran to the front door and twisted the handle. It wouldn't budge. The key I'd first used to unlock it was gone from my pocket. In its place was a folded scrap of paper. I unfolded it. My own handwriting stared back at me, I accepted. I dropped the paper, heart hammering. I hadn't written it. I hadn't. The knocking ceased. Silence rushed in, oppressive. Then, footsteps, soft, bare, approached from the hall outside my apartment. I held my breath, listening. They stopped right at my door. A whisper threaded through the keyhole, quiet as static, we can trade. I staggered back, shaking my head. I didn't know what it meant, but every part of me rejected it. The closet door creaked open on its own. Darkness spilled into the living room like smoke. And from it, shapes formed, faint silhouettes of people, overlapping, flickering. Their faces were smudges, but their mouths moved. One figure stepped forward more clearly than the rest, a young woman with hollow eyes and lips raw from biting. Maya. You'll take my place, she whispered. Her mouth didn't move in sync with the words. The radio carried her voice even though she stood before me. I shook my head. No. No, I won't. She tilted her head, pity or hunger in her expression, it was impossible to tell. They always do. Behind her, more figures pressed forward, layering into one another until they filled the room like a tide. Their hands reached out but didn't touch me, stopping just shy of my skin, as if waiting for permission. The ledger fluttered open on the floor. My name pulsed there, brighter, the blank underline burning itself into smoke. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. The silhouettes spoke together now, voices weaving into one, every room must stay full. The apartment door finally swung open, not to the hallway, but to another version of 6B, where my uncle stood waiting, his skin peeling like burnt paper. The doorway didn't reveal the dim hallway of the 6th floor. It was the same apartment, 6B, but tilted, wrong. Shadows bent at angles light couldn't explain, and furniture sagged as though it had been underwater for years. And in the center stood my uncle. He looked older than when I'd last seen him, but not by years, by decades of grief condensed into days. His skin was cracked, peeling like burned wallpaper. When he raised his head, his eyes were pools of ash. "You shouldn't have opened it," he rasped. His voice wasn't carried by the radio anymore, it came from his throat, wet and broken. "I tried to burn the building. I thought if I made it ash, they couldn't feed. But it only made them hungrier." I staggered backward, my heel knocking against the ledger on the floor. The chorus of tenant voices surged again from the walls, layered whispers swelling, "Every room must stay full." My uncle stretched out a hand, bones visible beneath peeling flesh. "You can still leave," he said, though his tone was unsure, desperate. "But you'll have to give them something. Someone." I shook my head, throat tight. "No. I won't trade a life." The room warped around me, as though punishing the refusal. The silhouettes thickened, faces clearer. Maya stood nearest, her lips cracked, whispering in sync with the others. "Every tenant signs. Every tenant stays. Balance must hold." My uncle's face twisted. "That's the lie. They don't all stay. Some pass the ledger on. Some hand the key away. And the building feeds anyway." The darker key lay on the carpet, still glowing faintly from when it had burned me. I realized then, the ledger didn't only record tenants, it collected them, binding them to the apartment like flies pressed under glass. And the key was the hook, dragging each new soul deeper. The apartment shook violently. The lights burst, showering sparks. The air turned thick as tar, choking my lungs. The trapdoor in the closet banged open again, and wind howled up from it, carrying screams like 1,000 throats in unison. My uncle shouted above the roar, "You have to choose. To leave or to stay, you can't do both." I tried to run for the front door, but the floor stretched, lengthening into an impossible corridor. The knob dissolved into the wall like melting wax. Behind me, Maya's figure reached again. "Take my place. Please. Just take my place." Her voice cracked into sobs, but her hands dug sharp crescents into my arms. For a moment I felt the ledger pulling me, my name burning deeper, the blank underline filling with invisible ink. I screamed, wrenching free, clutching the darker key in both hands. I raised it like a blade, ready to strike it into the ledger itself. My uncle caught my wrist before I could, his ruined face inches from mine. "If you destroy it," he whispered, "you destroy me too." His grip was stronger than it had any right to be. Charred flesh flaked beneath his fingers, but still he held me fast, keeping the darker key poised just above the ledger. His ruined eyes locked onto mine. "You think you're the first to try?" His voice was ragged, trembling. "Every heir thinks fire or steel can free them. The book doesn't burn. The book doesn't bleed. The book only trades." The ledger pulsed faintly on the carpet like a living heart, pages breathing in and out. My name glowed brighter, letters swelling until they looked carved from bone. "I won't do it," I said, my voice breaking. "I won't keep this thing alive." My uncle's expression twisted between pleading and fury. "Then it will keep you. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to them." As if on cue, the silhouettes of the tenants drew closer. Maya's hollow face loomed near, lips trembling with a whisper, "Stay. Stay with us." Her breath smelled of sugar rotting in heat, thick and unbearable. The room vibrated. The walls groaned, plaster cracking, as though the building itself leaned in to listen. "You can run," my uncle hissed. "But you'll carry it with you. The ledger finds you, no matter where you go. You can pass it, but never kill it." I tore my wrist free, skin peeling under his grip. The darker key throbbed in my hand, heat rising again, daring me to use it. With a surge of panic, I drove it down, not into the ledger, but into the trapdoor. The floor screamed like metal splitting. The trapdoor flung wide. Wind howled upward, dragging papers, curtains, and breath itself into the void. The ledger snapped open, its pages whipping, names screaming from the parchment like a roll call of the damned. My uncle's body was caught in the pull. He clutched the doorframe, his skin peeling away in ribbons, revealing raw shadow beneath. "Don't let it take me," he shrieked. "Not again." But the void wanted balance. It pulled harder. The apartment bent inward as if collapsing around the hole. Maya and the other silhouettes slipped forward eagerly, vanishing one by one into the darkness, their whispers fading into nothing. The ledger slammed shut. The pull ceased. Silence, thick as a coffin lid, dropped over the room. I was still kneeling, trembling, the darker key fused into the trapdoor as if soldered there. My uncle lay sprawled against the wall, gasping, his body more shadow than flesh now. "You've made it worse," he said softly. His voice no longer carried authority, only resignation. "You fed it yourself. You let it taste you." I looked down. My name was still in the ledger. The underline was no longer blank, it was half-filled, glowing faintly, waiting to finish itself. The radio sparked alive again, and this time, it wasn't static or a stranger's voice. It was my own, whispering words I hadn't spoken. "Tomorrow, you vanish." From the corner of the room, the closet door creaked once more, and this time, my own figure stepped out of it, smiling with my exact face. I froze as the door eased open, its hinges sighing like an old lung. Out stepped, me. Same clothes, same stance, same burn mark on the wrist where the darker key had seared me. Only the smile was wrong, too wide, too patient. My double's eyes glistened like wet ink. "You've already signed," it said. Its voice was mine, but coded in static, like it had been playing on the radio for years. "You don't need to resist anymore." I staggered backward. "You're not real." "Not real." The double tilted its head. "Neither is rent. Neither is debt. But you still pay, don't you?" It crouched to pick up the ledger, stroking the cover like a pet. "This is just another contract. One you can't break." Behind it, the silhouettes stirred. The apartment seemed to sag with their weight, the ceiling bowing, plaster dust falling like ash. My uncle groaned against the wall, shaking his head weakly. "Don't listen. Don't," he coughed up a thread of soot. "That thing, it's the vacancy made flesh." My double turned toward him with my smile sharpened to cruelty. "You should have burned faster," it hissed. The ledger opened by itself, flipping to the page with my name. The glow spread wider, filling the underline as if invisible ink were sealing my fate in real time. My double pressed a finger to it, and I felt a sting across my chest, as if the signature were carving into me instead of paper. "No." I lunged, grabbing for the ledger. My hand passed through my double like smoke, but the book remained solid. The pages burned cold against my skin. The apartment groaned louder. Windows flexed inward as though the glass wanted to shatter. The radio clicked, and this time every voice, Maya, the missing tenants, my uncle, chanted together in a rasping choir, "Every room must stay full." The closet behind my double gaped wider, the dark within no longer a void but a corridor lined with endless doors. Each bore a brass number, glowing faintly, stretching into infinity. Tenants' rooms. Traps, all of them. "Choose," my double urged. Its smile softened now, eerily kind. "Stay here in 6B, or step through another door. Either way, you're ours. Either way, the ledger balances." My uncle crawled forward, skeletal hands clutching at me. Don't take the offer. If you step through, you'll never stop falling." His voice cracked to a whisper. "But if you stay, you'll rot like me." I looked from him to my double. Both futures were cages. My breath shuddered out of me, raw and sharp. I raised the darker key, though it was fused half into the trapdoor. It glowed faintly in my hand, humming with a vibration that set my teeth on edge. My double leaned closer, whispering with my own voice, "Go on. Use it. See which of us survives." Before I could move, the walls split open, revealing dozens of eyes, tenant eyes, blinking from the plaster, all watching to see what choice I would make. The plaster bulged like wet paper, splitting in jagged seams. Eyes opened inside the cracks, dozens, maybe hundreds, each belonging to the tenants whose names filled the ledger. They blinked slowly, their gaze sticky and endless, and wherever I turned my head, they followed. The air thickened. My own double stood with the ledger pressed to its chest, smiling as if this unveiling were a gift. "See? They're not gone. They're waiting. Watching. Every signature is a seed, and you're about to bloom." The eyes blinked in unison, a sound like knuckles cracking. My stomach twisted. "I won't join them," I whispered, though my voice barely carried. "You already have," my double said. Its grin faltered just enough to reveal hunger behind the mask. "Why do you think you hear your own voice on the radio? Why do you think the ledger writes your hand before you move? You're being copied, printed into the walls like the rest." The radio switched on by itself, spitting static, then a perfect imitation of me began narrating what I was doing. "I'm backing away from the door. I'm looking for a way out. But there is none." I covered my ears, but the voice grew louder, vibrating through my bones. My uncle croaked from the corner, "It starts like that. They hollow you out until you're nothing but echo. That's how they keep the rooms full." The darker key buzzed in my palm, alive, eager. I pressed it against the wall where the eyes watched, and for a second they recoiled, lid slamming shut. A hiss echoed through the apartment, furious and sharp. My double snarled, the grin snapping into rage. "That key doesn't free you. It locks you deeper. You'll see." The ledger's pages whipped open again, faster this time, until they blurred into a storm. Names rose from the ink, floating in the air like ash. The room spun, a cyclone of voices circling, whispering, screaming, begging. My legs buckled. Then I saw her. Maya, no longer a silhouette, stepped out of the spinning ash. Her eyes were still hollow, but her face was unmistakably human again. She clutched my wrist, nails biting into my skin. "It doesn't end until someone chooses. Not escape. Not fight. Choice. That's the only rule." "What choice?" I gasped. Her hollow eyes glistened with something like pity. "You or him." She nodded toward my uncle. "One stays. One feeds. The other walks free." My uncle's voice broke into a scream. "Don't listen to her. They'll twist it, they'll bind you anyway." He clawed at the carpet, dragging his body closer. "It's never a choice. It's a trick." The eyes in the walls all blinked at once, the sound booming like thunder. My double tilted its head, watching me as if savoring the torment. The ledger hovered open, and two lines glowed now, mine, and beneath it, a new blank space. The underline pulsed, waiting for a second name. Maya shoved the ledger into my hands, and when I looked down, both my uncle's name and mine were already written there, the lines sparking as though the book demanded I finish one. The ledger's leather cover burned against my palms. Two names glowed on the open page, mine and my uncle's. Both underlines blinked like open mouths, waiting to be fed. I could feel it, whichever one I touched would seal itself, branding the apartment's next prisoner. My uncle clawed across the floor, his fingers leaving streaks of ash on the carpet. "Don't you dare," he rasped. "Don't give it to me. I've already spent my life in these walls. You'll damn us both." Maya's hollow eyes glimmered. She stood behind me like a shadow given form. "Every heir faces it. The apartment doesn't care about blood or guilt. It only needs one. Choose, and you'll walk out alive." My double circled closer, the grin stretched thin. She lies. Choose, and you walk out with nothing inside. You'll still be mine. Better to surrender now. The radio blared, my own voice narrating again, cruel and detached. I'm holding the ledger. I'm trembling. I want to live, but not at the cost of someone else. The words weren't mine, but they wormed into my mind until I almost believed them. The eyes in the walls blinked faster, impatient. Some leaked ink down the plaster, staining the carpet like veins spreading outward. The floorboards beneath me thrummed with the weight of countless footsteps pacing in unison. I wanted to drop the ledger, to throw it into the trapdoor and let it be swallowed whole. But my hands wouldn't open. The book clung to me, or I to it, as though we'd fused. The darker key pulsed at my hip, welded to the trapdoor, humming in rhythm with the names. My uncle's voice cracked. Please. Don't finish my line. I tried to save you from this. I tried to burn it down for you. I stared at him, his face half gone, smoke leaking from his mouth with every word. He was already more ash than man. But still alive. Still pleading. Maya leaned closer, her whisper slicing like glass. If you hesitate too long, the building decides for you. The ledger shuddered. My name's line began filling by itself, ink bleeding across the page as though invisible hands guided the pen. I gasped and tried to rip the page out, but it resisted, fibers unyielding, the glow intensifying. No. I shouted. I slammed my hand against my uncle's name instead. The glow faltered, both lines freezing mid-mark. The entire apartment groaned, furious, the eyes squeezing shut, then reopening with a blinding white light. The walls screamed. Plaster shattered outward in chunks. The radio exploded into sparks. My double shrieked, its grin splitting unnaturally wide as it dissolved into smoke. Maya's figure flickered, torn between relief and rage, before collapsing into dust. The ledger snapped shut, binding itself. The glow died. Silence rolled in, heavy and final. I opened my hands. The cover bore no title now, just blank leather. My uncle lay still across the room, eyes closed, chest unmoving. His name had vanished from the page entirely. Mine remained, incomplete, the line still half empty. From the quiet, the front door creaked open by itself, leading not to the hall but to a long corridor lined with doors, each numbered, each whispering my name. The doorway stretched into infinity. A corridor lined with identical doors, brass numbers glowing faintly in the gloom. The air smelled of mildew and charred paper. Every door whispered, my name, over and over, some soft as prayer, some sharp as accusation. I stepped closer, the ledger heavy against my chest. The floorboards here weren't wood at all but paper layered thick, soft underfoot, shifting with each step like stacked files in an archive. Every page I crushed whispered too, more names, more voices swallowed by the building. Behind me, the apartment was gone. No more couch, no more flickering lamp. Only this corridor and the weight of countless eyes watching from cracks in the plaster. The first door on my left bore the number 6B. Familiar brass, polished bright. When I touched it, the darker key in my pocket pulsed, almost yanking forward. My fingers brushed the knob and instantly I smelled burnt sugar and heard Maya's voice sobbing again. I ripped my hand away. The second door, 7C, vibrated faintly as though something paced inside. A child's giggle seeped through the crack, quickly drowned by silence. I moved on. Every door was alive. Some shuddered, some sighed, some whispered promises. And each one spoke my name differently, kind, cruel, desperate. The corridor bent without end. My uncle's voice drifted faintly from somewhere far behind, don't trust them. They'll keep you walking until you choose. That's how they bind you. I clutched the ledger tighter. Choose what? I whispered to no one. The walls groaned in answer, plaster cracking to reveal more eyes, blinking impatiently. The darker key grew heavier, dragging down my pocket like lead. I pulled it free. Its surface had changed, notched with new grooves, as though it had already been in every one of these locks. It pulsed, eager. A door ahead flung itself open without my touch. Blackness yawned beyond, but not void. Inside was a mirror of me, standing in another hallway, holding another ledger. My reflection raised its head. Its eyes were hollow, mouth moving in perfect sync with mine. Though I hadn't spoken, one of us must stay. The sound shattered me. My chest heaved as the corridor vibrated, the voices of vanished tenants layering into a chant. Every room must stay full. Every heir must choose. I slammed the door shut, heart thundering. My ledger throbbed hot, almost burning through my shirt. When I opened it, the page with my name was spreading again, ink bleeding outward into all the blank lines, writing me over and over, filling pages, claiming every vacancy. I tried to rip it apart. The paper screamed. From every door in the corridor, fists began pounding, desperate, enraged, demanding. Dust rained from the ceiling. The floor sagged. One by one, the doors flew open, rows of black mouths. Figures stepped out. Not shadows this time. Bodies. My doubles. Dozens, hundreds. Each one holding a ledger. Each one smiling. The first double spoke in unison with the rest, "We've been waiting for you. It's your turn to choose which one stays." They poured out of the doors in a staggering line, hundreds of versions of me, some younger, some older, all wearing the same expression, a smile too wide, too sure. Each one clutched a ledger, each one with my name already finished in ink. The corridor shook beneath their footsteps, yet the paper floor never tore, never gave way. I stumbled back, but the corridor didn't let me retreat far. Behind me, more doors opened, releasing more doubles. I was surrounded by myself, every angle filled with a voice I didn't trust. The first one stepped forward. Its skin shimmered faintly, as though painted on with shadow. "We're not your enemy," it said in my own voice. "We're your futures. Every tenant who signed before you was rewritten, made new. You'll join us soon." Their ledgers opened as one, a papery thunder. Pages flapped violently though there was no wind. Inside, every line bore my name, repeated endlessly, like a chorus written on skin. "No," I whispered. "You're not me. You're what it wants me to become." Dozens of smiles faltered, just slightly. But the chant began again, 100 voices rising, "Every room must stay full." The walls of the corridor bowed inward, as though pulled closer by their words. The ceiling split, eyes dripping black ink that rained onto the floor, seeping into the paper under my feet. The corridor smelled of rot and smoke, sugar and ash. One double stepped nearer until it stood inches away. Its breath smelled of static, of metal burning. "You don't have to fight. Just choose which version of yourself will stay behind. That's all. One of us remains, the rest walk free." Another voice echoed from deeper in the corridor. My uncle's voice, faint, broken, but present. "Don't listen. Don't trust the trade. You'll never walk free. It just multiplies you until the building is full again." The doubles tilted their heads in eerie unison. Their grins widened once more, sharp now, hungry. "He's lying. He's always lied. That's why he burned and failed. Why he rots in the walls. Don't be him. Be us." My chest pounded. The ledger in my hands grew heavier, its cover swelling as if breathing. I flipped it open unwillingly, and there it was again, my name, glowing, the underline stretching across page after page, already half complete. I wanted to scream, but the corridor swallowed sound. The only thing louder was the pulse of the darker key in my pocket. It hummed like it had a heartbeat of its own. I gripped it tight, and for the first time, the doubles all flinched. Their smiles broke, twisting into snarls. "That doesn't free you," they hissed. "That buries you deeper." The corridor tilted, doors slamming shut behind them. The doubles surged closer, hundreds of me reaching out, trying to press the ledger into my chest, trying to force my hand to finish the line. As their hands touched me, the darker key ignited, searing white fire, and in that blaze I saw something impossible, a door at the very end of the corridor marked with no number at all. The fire from the darker key blazed against my palm, searing but not burning. The corridor reeled, doubles staggering back, their ledgers snapping shut like frightened animals. The white glow cut through the black ink dripping from the ceiling, carving a thin path toward the farthest end of the hallway. There it was, the door with no number. Plain wood, warped, unmarked, and yet every eye in the walls twisted to avoid looking at it. The chant of "every room must stay full" faltered, stuttering into uneasy silence. I gripped the key tighter. The doubles hissed in unison. "Not that door," they warned. "That one empties everything. That one ends you." For the first time, I thought I saw fear in their faces. And it almost gave me strength. The paper floor rippled as I forced myself forward. Each step crunched like bones breaking, the whispers underfoot begging me to stop, to choose a numbered door instead. I kept moving. My uncle's voice drifted faintly, echoing from no direction and every direction. "I tried once. I failed. Maybe you won't." The door loomed larger, though it couldn't have been more than 7 feet tall. Its surface was scarred with scratches, gouges, symbols I didn't recognize. It seemed to breathe, expanding slightly with each of my steps. When I reached it, the darker key pulsed harder, almost pulling itself into the lock. The doubles crowded behind me now, hundreds of me pressing close, their whispers filling my ears. "Don't. Don't open it. You'll erase yourself. You'll erase us all." That sounded almost like a promise. I slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly, as though it had been waiting centuries just for this. The corridor shook violently. Doors slammed open and shut along both sides. Tenants' voices wailed, pleading, raging, begging not to be forgotten. The eyes in the walls burst like bubbles, spilling black liquid that sizzled as it hit the floor. My doubles screamed. Some lunged at me, but as the key turned, their bodies unraveled into dust and static. The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. A wind poured out, not hot, not cold, just absence. The kind of emptiness that stripped sound, thought, memory. For a moment I felt myself slipping, pieces of me scattering like ash. I pressed harder, pushing the door wider. Inside wasn't a room. It wasn't anything. It was nothingness, vast and eternal, waiting to swallow. The ledger in my hand writhed violently, pages flapping, trying to escape. It burned to be free, to keep existing. I realized the truth then: the apartment, the corridor, the doubles, they were all the ledger. The book was the spine holding this nightmare together. I raised it, shaking, every instinct screaming against what I was about to do. If I threw it into the nothingness, maybe everything ended. Maybe so would I. Behind me, one voice cut through the chaos, my mother's, impossible, whispering from a double's mouth, "Don't let me vanish with them." That voice stopped me colder than the void itself. My mother's voice, gentle, cracked by memory, impossible. I spun. Among the dissolving doubles stood one that hadn't unraveled. Its eyes were my mother's, its mouth trembling as it spoke again. "Please. Don't open it. If you throw the ledger away, you throw me away too. My chest locked. She'd been gone for years, buried under quiet earth. But hearing her voice again clawed open wounds I thought had scarred. The other doubles hissed, snarled, their faces breaking apart into static, but they didn't dare come closer to the door with no number. Only this one, this impossible imitation, stood firm. "You're not her," I whispered. My voice cracked. "But I could be," it answered softly. Its smile wasn't wide like the others, it was tender, familiar. "If you close the door, if you stay, you can keep me. Forever." The ledger pulsed, heavy as stone in my arms. The blank underline beneath my name glowed brighter, aching to be finished. My hands trembled. My uncle's voice rasped from nowhere and everywhere again, urgent, "It lies. It always lies. Don't give it what it wants." The double took a step closer, her eyes glistening like they had on the night she tucked me in during a thunderstorm. "Don't listen to him. He wanted to burn us all, to erase everything. But you can keep what matters. Me." The corridor howled. Doors slammed open, doors slammed shut. Tenants' voices shrieked, torn between hope and despair. The eyes in the walls bled ink faster, black rivers streaking downward. The paper floor buckled under my feet, swollen with too many names. The darker key throbbed, urging me to finish what I'd started, to hurl the ledger into nothing. I closed my eyes. For 1 second, I imagined keeping her, keeping the warmth of her voice, the promise of her arms again. But beneath that dream was rot. Even if it gave me her shadow, the apartment would never stop feeding. It would use her like it used Maya, like it used my uncle. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "You're not her." Her face twisted, soft eyes hardening into voids. The tenderness fell away, replaced by the too wide smile of all the other doubles. "Then you'll be nothing," it spat, voice shifting from my mother's to mine, layered with 100 others. "And nothing is worse than us." The ledger writhed violently, pages tearing themselves free, flapping like wings. The doubles surged, screaming in chorus, hurling themselves at me even as their forms unraveled in the white light pouring from the open door. I screamed back, raising the ledger high. With every ounce of strength left, I hurled it into the nothingness beyond the door. The moment it crossed the threshold, silence devoured everything. The doubles vanished mid-step. The corridor's doors splintered into dust. The eyes collapsed inward, imploding in bursts of ash. The paper floor dissolved beneath my feet. I fell, alone, into the endless white of the door with no number, with no ledger left to anchor me. I plummeted. No wind, no sensation of speed, just the endless white swallowing every part of me. My screams had no echo here. The nothingness wasn't silent, it hummed softly, like the low vibration of electricity through bones. Then I realized I wasn't falling. I was suspended, held in place as though the void had hands. I looked down, no floor, no ground, just more whiteness folding into itself. Above me, the corridor had already dissolved. The apartment was gone. For the first time since I'd set foot in 6B, there was no whisper, no chant, no eyes. Just me. And then, footsteps. I spun. From the blank horizon, a figure walked toward me as if the void had grown a path beneath its feet. My uncle. Not charred this time, not peeling. He looked younger, how I remembered him from childhood photographs. "You did what I couldn't," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried in the emptiness. "You let it go." I wanted to believe him. But the void itself trembled at his words, a shiver running through the white, as if rejecting the statement. "Where are we?" I asked, throat dry. "Nowhere," he replied simply. Every tenant who ever tried to end it came here. The door with no number doesn't lead to freedom. It leads to forgetting. My chest tightened. So I erased everything. He shook his head. Not everything. The ledger is gone. The rooms are gone. But we remain. Fragments. Behind him, more figures began to form out of the white. Maya. The tenants whose names I'd seen. Dozens of them, stepping carefully, faces half real, half dissolving back into the void. They all stared at me with expressions I couldn't read. You freed us from the rooms, Maya whispered. Her hollow eyes shimmered faintly, almost human now. But you bound us here. The whiteness pulsed again, harder this time, and a line appeared in the air before me, floating text, carved into light. My name. The same underline, half filled, waiting to be complete. No, I whispered. I threw it away. The void responded with 1,000 overlapping voices, calm and cold. There is always a record. There is always a tenant. There is always a room. The white trembled, fracturing into thin cracks. Through them, I glimpsed other places, the corridor, the apartment, the countless numbered doors, still alive somewhere else, as though I had only peeled back one layer. My uncle touched my shoulder. His hand was warm now, solid. The building is older than us. Older than the ledger. It only used the book. Destroying it didn't kill the hunger. It just made it shift. I staggered back, heart slamming in my chest. The cracks spread, light pouring through. Behind the fractures I saw new tenants stepping into apartments that shouldn't exist, their names already burning into invisible pages. The white beneath me split open, and I was falling again, this time toward a new door, its brass plate gleaming with a number I knew too well, 6B. The white shattered beneath me like glass, and I plunged through. The void peeled away, and when I opened my eyes, I was standing once more in the apartment, 6B. Same sagging carpet, same warped window, same smell of burnt sugar that clung to the walls. It was as if nothing had happened. The ledger was gone. The corridor with endless doors had vanished. But the apartment was here, waiting, unshaken by my struggle. The radio hissed to life. My own voice spilled out, tired, resigned, every tenant returns. Every room must stay full. No, I whispered, backing toward the door. No, I ended this. The knob was cold under my hand. I twisted. It turned freely this time. For the first time since I'd entered, the door opened onto the hallway. Dim, familiar light stretched before me, the smell of disinfectant faint from the stairwell below. I almost cried with relief. I stepped into the hall. The door to 6B clicked shut behind me. And then, I heard it. The sound of footsteps inside. Someone moving around. A chair scraping. A faucet running. The unmistakable rhythm of a tenant living their life. My blood ran cold. I turned the knob again. Locked. My key no longer fit. I backed away. The brass numbers on the other doors glowed faintly, like embers. 6A, 6C, 7B. Whispers trickled from beneath them, fragments of laughter, sobs, television static. Every door was full. At the end of the hall, a figure stood. A woman, her posture weary but proud. Maya. No longer hollow-eyed. She looked alive, breathing, almost normal. She met my gaze and gave a small, sad smile. You freed us from the ledger, she said softly. But not from the building. The ledger was only one mouth. The walls themselves are hungry. I staggered toward her, desperate. Then what do I do? How do I end it? She tilted her head, pity in her eyes. There is no end. Only vacancy, and tenancy. It passes from one to the next. That's how it survives. Her body flickered, and for a split second I saw her doubled, tripled, a dozen versions of her walking the halls at once. Then she was gone. I turned back towards 6B. Through the crack beneath the door, I saw light shift, shadows moving. A tenant was inside. My place had already been filled. The realization clawed into me, I hadn't escaped. I had only been evicted. The apartment didn't want me anymore because it had someone new. The hallway darkened, bulbs fizzing out one by one, until only the brass 6B gleamed in the gloom. The sound of laughter rose from behind the door, a man's voice, maybe already forgetting he had just walked in. The building whispered around me, its voice like settling plaster, like breath through vents, every room must stay full. The elevator at the end of the hall dinged open, and when I turned, the doors revealed a dozen more keys on hooks, each tagged with my name. The elevator doors yawned wide, golden light spilling out like it had been waiting only for me. Inside, a rack of hooks lined the wall. Keys dangled there, dozens, maybe hundreds. Every one bore the same tag, the same shaky script I'd seen on my uncle's envelope, my name. I staggered forward, unable to stop myself. The air in the hall pressed at my back, urging me toward the elevator. Behind me, 6B was alive with muffled voices, someone unpacking boxes, setting plates, living a life that wasn't theirs anymore. The elevator's light flickered once, revealing shadows etched on the walls inside. Each was a silhouette of me, some standing tall, some crouched in fear, some with the ledger clutched against their chest. All of them grinned faintly. I reached for one of the keys, my hand trembling. The brass was ice cold. As soon as I touched it, whispers poured into my skull. Not words, contracts. Clauses. Rent due not in dollars but in days, in heartbeats, in pieces of a soul. No, I said aloud, shaking my head. I won't sign again. I won't. The elevator doors began to close. Panic surged. I dropped the key and lunged out into the hallway before they sealed. The light inside snapped off, leaving me in the dim corridor again. But the hallway had changed. Every door now bore the number 6B. Brass gleaming, locks waiting. From each room, faint noises leaked, crying, laughter, screams, lullabies. All tenants. All living. All trapped. The floor lurched, slanting. The building groaned like a beast waking from deep sleep. The whispers rose until they shook the walls, every room must stay full. I stumbled, slamming a hand against the wall for balance, and felt it pulse beneath my palm, like the flesh of something alive. The radio static crackled through unseen speakers overhead, my voice weaving with the chant, every air returns. Every air remains. I ran. The hallway stretched on forever, door after door, 6B repeating, numbers blurring until there was no end. My chest burned. My legs screamed. Still, I ran. Then I saw it. At the farthest end, a window. Cracked, filthy, but showing the city lights outside. An exit. A chance. I threw myself toward it, slamming my shoulder against the glass. It shattered outward, icy night air flooding in. Relief seared me, I was free. I climbed onto the ledge, heart thundering. Below, the street shimmered with rain. Cars passed. Life moved on. But then I looked back. The apartment hall behind me was still there, stretching into eternity, each door still whispering my name. And the city outside looked wrong, tilted, pale, like a photograph hung crooked. The truth hit me like a weight, I hadn't escaped the building. The building had escaped into me. The whisper became a roar, shaking marrow, every room must stay full. Or ending. The glass beneath my feet cracked. Either I jumped into a world I no longer trusted, or stepped back into a hall that would never end. I closed my eyes. And chose.